different point of view. She presented it about 3 months ago on the show. She made a very strong case, saying that what the prosecution put forward was not accurate, depicting her client David Pearce as a man who dumped bodies in front of a hospital. According to Ronda Dixon, David Pearce's new attorney, who's with us right here now on the Breaking News Los Angeles newsroom live line. We are asking the question, what has happened to David Pearce? His sentencing was supposed to be June 30th in Los Angeles. Ronda Dixon, are you there?
Yes, I am. Good
Well,
evening.
good evening. Welcome to the show. Your client, as mentioned the last time we spoke 3 months ago, very unpopular in Los Angeles here. He's not exactly someone that people look up to at this time. The charges that I just read are very serious. They can put him away for life. He was convicted on rapes that he wasn't tried for, that they bundled in. What is the latest? The sentencing was supposed to take place on June 30th. That did not happen, and that's because he hired you. Tell us what's going on.
Well, it didn't happen because it took a while for me to get the 14 volumes of trial transcripts. And then I have three Marsden motions, and Marsden motions are motions where you want to get rid of your attorney for ineffective assistance of counsel. During the trial, there was three Marsden motions. And then before the trial, there was a motion to sever and a motion to recuse because the co-defendant's counsel, Artan, had also met with both of these people together when they were considering getting, an attorney. And I believe that there was multiple incorrect rulings by the judge in the case that, when you have a consultation that conflicts a person out, if they consult with both parties, it conflicts them from representing either one. And the judge ruled against that, but that is actually well settled. Then the other issue is the motion to sever. These cases, some of them were dating back to 2007. These were what we call prior uncharged acts. They were not the same. They were different cases. Like, there's no evidence actually that there was any attempted rape or rape of either of the young ladies that died. Okay. Neither one of them was raped or had any evidence of having been raped or sexually assaulted. So that's number one. But by putting all of this other evidence together, it gave the idea, like when you just read it, when I first heard this story, I was upset when they said he dumped the bodies and he was preying upon these models. And as you recall, there were another two models that happened to be black women that were also killed in the same time frame, but it wasn't related at all. But the point is, it gave people the idea and a little bit of fear and hysteria that somebody's preying on young, pretty women and are, overdosing them or killing them somehow. So in this case, these girls were at a rave. And if you know anything about rave culture, they had MDMA in their system, which is ecstasy. They had several other drugs in their system. These drugs, they took themselves. There's no evidence that these drugs were given or administered by David or Brant, neither one of them. There's no evidence that they administered any drugs to these women. But the DA was allowed to, in the very beginning opening argument, she says he's a sexual predator. She says that he preys upon women and he has a long history of doing so. And she uses these prior uncharged acts to do that. But these cases have been investigated when they were timely, and they found that they were rejected for various reasons. And there was reasons for that because of the credibility of the witnesses. They were just women that were upset with him because he's maybe not a nice guy, he's kind of a dick, but that doesn't make him guilty of killing these ladies.
What would you say he's guilty of, Rhonda, criminally? What would he then, if you're saying that he's not guilty of these murders and not guilty of these rapes, which I think you've presented a pretty reasonable case to me, especially if there's evidence that the judge did not throw out this claim that they dumped the bodies and just left at the hospital when you said there's videotape evidence to the contrary. But if that's not
Yeah,
the
they were at the hospital for hours. They were
hours,
not, yes, they did not dump the bodies. Neither of them. They were actually trying to be good Samaritans. They were actually trying to take these ladies to the doctor, and it wasn't their fault that they overdosed. But one thing I do say is that we should really have a good Samaritan law, and we should be encouraging people to use Narcan. Maybe these women would still be alive if Narcan was more available. Um, at any rate, the evidence doesn't really show that they administered any drugs to these ladies or tried to have sex with them. Christy Giles, who they claim that he was trying to have sex with, was actually not in his room, but was in a room. They had another roommate that wasn't there at the time. She was put to bed in that bed, okay? And the other one was on the couch. So nobody had sex with anybody. They came home very early in the morning, like 5 something a.m., and they fell asleep. And they thought that the girls were sleeping, and so by the time they found out that the girls weren't sleeping, that's when they decided, one girl was in very bad shape. I believe that was Christy. They took her to the hospital, and then they waited for her, and then by the time they got back, the other girl was in distress. And contrary to what they say that the girls were dead on arrival, they were not. Neither one of them were dead on arrival.
So how did all this get into the media narrative? How did this end up where they said, look, they dumped the bodies and they dumped them and they walked out? I mean, no major news outlet has reported any of this. Well, how did this happen?
It happened because in the beginning, when it first happened, that's what the narrative was, that they just dumped their bodies and left.
That is absolutely that is absolutely false. You're saying absolutely false. There was at least 2 to 3 hours where they were outside the hospital when they done. Go ahead.
They weren't outside the hospital for 2 to 3 hours, but they were outside the hospital for a long time because, first of all, it was during COVID,
Right.
and
Okay.
they weren't able to get into the hospital. The first one they went to was Kaiser, and they weren't able to get in right away. And then when they did get in, if you're looking at the video, David goes in and says something to them, and they say, you can't come in until you put a mask on. So he didn't come in with a mask. So when he was there, he gets the mask, he comes back outside, he's trying to get them to come and bring somebody to the car to look at her. The person does look at her, and then they leave. And they come back with another, gurney, and Brant and both Brant and David help to put her in there, and they put her purse on her, and then they leave. Now, they didn't leave to not give them information. They did not want them to come in because it was COVID.
Right. Okay. You mentioned that last time, and I appreciate you restating this. But my question, if we can go back to my original question, if not rape, if not murder, if not sodomy, forcible sodomy, what is your client not guilty of is he guilty of not guilty of everything?
There's no evidence that anybody had sex with either one of these girls.
So they should in your mind they should free this man. He's been through enough he's been in LA County Jail which is it's an absolute horror show for 3 years. You're saying this man is innocent of all these charges, and he should be released immediately.
Yes, there's in the indictment, they decided to go the way of a grand jury indictment, right? And so that's sealed and it's secretive. He didn't even know that the indictment had occurred or that these other Jane Does were, testifying at this. But this is totally a situation where there's no opportunity to cross-examine, to see any of the evidence. This is all secretive, right?
Right. So
I've quoted in my motion for new trial, the person that they brought from the coroner's office, this doctor says that he disagreed with the coroner's cause of death. Not cause of death, but manner of death. So he went and broke it down. He even said, well, there's a difference between cause of death and manner of death. He said he agrees with him that the cause of death is multiple drugs in their systems. That's for both girls. He agrees that that is the actual cause of death. The manner of death is subjective, and it's based on the totality of the circumstances and looking at everything. And he said he did not have enough information to make a determination. So he said it's undetermined, and this is why. There are several possibilities. One possibility is that it was a suicide. The other possibility is that the girls accidentally overdosed. Another possibility, if it's truly believed that people gave them drugs with the intent to kill them, you see, you have to have an intent to kill to get premeditated murder. Then there could also be an accidental murder. You know, in other words, if everything that they say about him was true and all these prior acts, which are obviously prejudicial because Brant Osborne had a hung jury and he wasn't burdened with all those collateral, all these collateral acts. He wasn't burdened with that. So he got a hung jury on both girls. The other one, David, obviously this is clearly that it's prejudicial because the reason why he was convicted was because they had the same set of circumstances, except for the fact that he had all those collateral, acts that came in, the prior uncharged acts. Some of them were charged because some of them have a higher statute of limitations, but they shouldn't have been charged. Like, for instance, let's go with Jane Doe, the first girl up, Jane Doe 1. She can't remember anything about what time she was there. She can't remember what she said in the police report. But guess what? When PJ Bowles tries to cross-examine and tries to impeach, he's shut down because finally he's trying to say that, in the police report you said 1:30, but here you're saying 10. In the police report you said one thing and now you're saying something else. And he's shut down because the officer is not available. And when he asked about the officer not being available, Catherine says, I don't know where he is. It was a long time ago. I didn't even check. I'm assuming he's retired or maybe he's dead, but I don't know. And the judge let that go. That's a Sixth Amendment violation. That's a Confrontation Clause violation.
And we're speaking here with Ronda Dixon on Breaking News Los Angeles. Ronda Dixon now leading the effort to really gain a new trial for her client, who is a convicted murderer and rapist at this hour. Hollywood producer DavidPearce, one of the most disliked men in LA at the moment, painted by the legacy media as a rapist, as a real sleazy guy who took advantage of two young ladies at a rave, drugged them with a GHB mixed drug cocktail, and according to the DA's office, which was, by the way, this case was started by District Attorney George Gascon, he said that it was DavidPearce's cocktail that killed these two ladies. Eric Brenner here, Breaking News Los Angeles. We're very pleased. Go ahead, Rhonda. Go ahead.
That's speculation, number one. And number two, the glass was tested. So the first lawyer he had, Gluckman, he had a investigator. She had custody of the glass, and there was a compact that the girls use. They call it a drug compact. And they had tested that, and it had like 3 different drugs in it: ketamine, fentanyl and cocaine or something like that, or meth, something like that. So it had a cocktail of drugs in it that, and the girls are videotaped snorting it, along with Michael Ansbach, who's the one who conveniently says they said dead women tell no tales, dead girls tell no tales, which doesn't even sound feasible, but that got him out of it. So, because he should have been suspect number 3.
So let's talk about Asbeck for a second. I'm glad you brought him up. He's the one who really scored the win for the DA on this. We can both agree it was his testimony that said that when he gave state testimony there against your client, DavidPearce, saying that he was the one who gave this lethal cocktail to these 2 young ladies. What are you expecting from him? First of all, let's talk about the original reason we brought you on here, please, if we can get back to that. An update on why the sentencing did not happen on June 30th. Can you tell us why that didn't happen?
It didn't happen because I asked for a continuance simply because it took me a long time to get the 14 volumes from the court.
Okay.
I had just barely gotten those volumes and gone through them, and I had also requested. I have several motions before the court.
Okay.
I had requested the Marsden motions be unsealed and sent to me. I requested the transcripts from the motion to recuse R10 and the motion to sever the unduly prejudicial collateral acts that were, the prior uncharged acts. And there also should have been a severance. I don't know why R10 didn't make a motion to sever on behalf of his client, but
What about this whole thing with the tape, with the videotape? Was that included in this?
the videotape.
Yeah, meaning the video, meaning the contention that they left and abandoned the body. I mean, that's another reason for you?
That's going to be included because
Okay.
they misstate. In the very beginning, she totally misstates the evidence. You have a little bit of poetic license, but you're basically supposed to start out with the evidence will show, and you shouldn't say that it's things that you can't show. But she started out in her opening argument saying that he's a sexual predator.
Okay.
And this is not something that she was able to prove, but she probably also, she talked to a lot of the witnesses kept saying they drank alcohol and it made them woozy, and that's obviously that's a speculation.
Where did they get, and how would you explain the one count of sexual penetration by a foreign object? What is that about?
Was that on one of the girls?
This is just what this is part of what the DA in their press release on this conviction, what they listed on as.
This was one of the other girls, the Jane Does or whatever.
I believe so. Yes.
Yes. So just the cumulative nature of the Jane Doe, obviously these things had been, all of these cases were rejects by the DA. They originally rejected. They had gotten the case, they had done their research, they found that the evidence wasn't enough, it wasn't sufficient, or that the witnesses were not reliable.
All right. Well, we're following this very closely, Rhonda. You make a very compelling case. I think you take a look at your background. Like I've said in the last broadcast, you have a very good name in this town. You're on the Cannabis Commission. You worked you volunteered in Watts. I know that about you, and I know you also mentioned you've worked with drug rehabilitation and that sort of thing. I really believe a woman of your stature wouldn't get involved in something like this if you didn't strongly believe that a man who was convicted of these very serious and horrible allegations, horrible crimes, I don't believe you'd get involved if you didn't think he was really innocent, and really makes someone think. Is this a pile-on by the media? Is this hysteria out of control because of the unfortunate and terrible deaths of these two beautiful young ladies? You have to think there's so many cases that I can think of where the media and the district attorney made a mistake. Anything else you want to tell us? Go ahead.
Well, it's heart-wrenching that the young ladies died, and I feel for their families. But just as the coroner said, there's several different reasons that could have happened, and one of them is an accidental overdose. And he said these young ladies put themselves at risk by taking multiple drugs. He did not give them all the drugs that they took. One had 7 in her body, one had 6 drugs in her body. And I had asked for a toxicologist, which the judge has denied twice, but I'm going to renew my request because I'm going to request judicial notice of these 2 peer-reviewed reports that state that GHB can be metabolized after death based on the bacteria and different things that are in the body. GHB actually is something that is naturally occurring in the body, and it can metabolize after death.
Okay.
And so Catherine hammered on that. That was her main theory. And if you were to disprove that theory, then that would have taken a lot of the wind out of her sails. So he didn't have an opportunity to do that. There was no toxicologist on his behalf. And I had told him from the very beginning, I had a very great guy to do this matter. And he also is an expert on raves. He asked me, was MDMA in their system? I said, yes, it was. And he was talking about the fact that he knows about these things. And he is a licensed trial attorney, as well as a pharmacologist and a toxicologist. So
some very impressive credentials, and obviously you're very serious about bringing the top people in to present your defense. Eric Brenner here, Breaking News, Los Angeles. We're with esteemed criminal defense attorney Ronda Dixon, who is defending and leading the effort to free her client, producer, and now convicted murderer and rapist, David Pearce, who's been in the LA County Jail for over 3 years now. Not very a pleasant place to be. Even for 15 minutes, let alone 3 years. Ronda, thank you for joining us. So what is the, one final question, what is the timeline here? And when would you find, this is obviously not a lock that you're going to get a new trial. When do you think, when is the next appearance in court on this?
August 27th is the next appearance. I've already got a draft of this motion. I'm going to review it with my co-counsel and allow people to review it and see if there's anything else they want to add to it. And that there's a possibility I still may request that the toxicologist be brought in, because I have, at the last hearing, the DA said that there was a toxicologist, but she kind of misled the court there. I've read all 14 volumes, and there was no toxicologist on behalf of Mr. Pearce that actually testified.
So August 27th is the day. Is that?
It's the day.
That's the day.
It's going to be the day,
okay.
Because I have it completed. And like I said,
Okay.
I'm going to tweak it a little bit, but as long as I get it in within 10 days before that, that gives the DA, time to do whatever they need to do if they're going to respond. Many times they don't respond.
Okay.
Because they really depend on the judge. It's sort of to me a little unfair, because I do all this work and then they don't respond. A lot of times the judge rules in their favor and gives the reasoning why on their own without actually having the DA weigh in on their position and making an opposition to my brief.
So August 27th is not the date that that the judge will decide if David Pearce gets a new trial. That's a date that the DA will have a chance to respond to this.
No, I'm going to get it in early to give the DA a chance to respond.
Copy that. Thank you. Thank you for saying that again. Thank you.
Then, the DA is going to have a chance to respond, and then I'll have a chance to rebut. So
all right.
we'll see what happens.
Well, you're breaking the news. We appreciate you breaking this news right here on Breaking News Los Angeles, Ronda. We wish you the best. We know that this is an uphill battle for you. I wasn't there. I don't know what David Pearce did, but this is the United States of America, the court in the state of California, and everyone has a right to due process, even a very unpopular person like your client, Hollywood producer David Pearce. Ronda Dixon, attorney at law. Thanks for joining us today on Breaking News Los Angeles.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. There you have it. One of the best from LA. We had Ronda Dixon right there, leading the effort, leading the defense team for a very unpopular man. And like I said earlier, when I read these charges, sodomy by force, murdering women at a rave, it invokes rage in a man like me and 99% of the population. It's absolutely horrendous and horrific to be accused of something like this. He was convicted by a jury of his peers. We just had his new defense attorney say they got it all wrong. Stay tuned for more on this case. I'm Eric Brenner for Breaking News Los Angeles. Thank you.